Psalm 23 exposed. It will tear down your fear and rebuild your faith. Psalm 23 isn't just a comforting poem to recite at funerals or a verse to frame on a wall. It's a living, breathing revelation of God's heart for His people. Too often we skim its words, familiar with the rhythm but blind to its power. But there's a secret buried in this psalm that, once uncovered, can shift the course of your life. This isn't about religious tradition or poetic beauty. This is about divine strategy. It's about how the Creator of the universe designed a path for your protection, provision, healing, and purpose, all wrapped into 6 short verses. And I want to walk that path with you today. You see, David wasn't writing as a philosopher. He was a shepherd, a warrior, a king, and a man who had tasted both glory and the pit. His words weren't theory, they were testimony. Every line of Psalm 23 comes from the scars of battle and the sweetness of God's faithfulness. When you truly receive this psalm into your spirit, it will begin to uproot fear, break cycles of striving, and pull you into a deeper relationship with the shepherd who knows your name. Stay with me, because once we unlock the hidden truth in this passage, you'll never walk through life the same again. Truth 1. The Lord is my shepherd. The declaration that rewrites your identity. The first words of Psalm 23 are not a question, a request, or a wish. They are a declaration. David begins with boldness. The Lord is my shepherd. Not a shepherd, not their shepherd, but my shepherd. This is personal. It's not a theological statement, it's an identity shift. In just 5 words, David anchors himself to a truth that changes everything. He belongs to someone greater. Someone who guides, protects, provides, and knows him fully. Someone who has taken responsibility for his life. When David calls the Lord his shepherd, he's not painting a passive picture. He's speaking as a man who's lived in the fields, who's fought off lions and bears for the sake of sheep, who didn't even know they were in danger. He's not romanticizing God, he's revealing him. This is a God who watches over every step. A God who pursues the wandering, a God who counts every loss and calls every sheep by name. And when David says my shepherd, he's making a bold claim. I am not in control, but I am not alone. That one phrase demolishes the lie of isolation. It silences the orphan spirit that says you have to figure it out on your own. It crushes the pressure to lead yourself, fix yourself, and fight for yourself. Because the shepherd's job is to lead, to carry, to fight, to feed. The sheep's job is to follow. That may sound simple, but in a world that idolizes independence and self-sufficiency, to call the Lord my shepherd is an act of radical surrender. It's the death of pride. It's the birth of trust. And don't miss this. David doesn't wait until the end of his life to make this declaration. He leads with it. Because when you know whose you are, you begin to see who you are. You're not lost. You're not abandoned. You're not forgot. You are seen, loved, and led by the shepherd who lays down his life for you. That identity doesn't come from success, status, or self-image. It comes from the one who walks ahead of you, prepares the way, and calls you by name. When you say the Lord is my shepherd, you are no longer a wandering soul trying to find your way. You are a child under the care of the Most High. That changes how you wake up in the morning. That changes how you walk into battles. That changes how you look at your future. You don't belong to fear. You don't belong to the world. You belong to the shepherd, and he's not about to let you go. Truth 2. I shall not want. Living in the overflow of God's provision. When David says, I shall not want, he's not denying that life has needs. He's not pretending hunger, pain, or longing don't exist. What he's doing is declaring a deeper truth, one that transcends circumstance. When the Lord is your shepherd, lack doesn't define you. The world tells you that fulfillment comes when you achieve more, acquire more, hustle harder. But David steps into a completely different realm. The realm of divine sufficiency. He isn't writing this from a palace surrounded by riches. He's writing from a place of spiritual revelation. With God, I lack nothing I truly need. This statement is a declaration of war against the spirit of scarcity. It confronts the fear that says, I'm not enough, I'll never have enough. I have to strive to survive. David's words cut through that fear and offer a new mindset, one rooted in trust, not in control. He's not saying all your desires will be met, but he is saying all your needs are covered. There is a difference. The shepherd doesn't feed your flesh. He nourishes your soul. He gives what's best, not just what's wanted. I shall not want is the anthem of someone who has stopped chasing provision and started following the provider. This doesn't mean your bank account will always be full or your path will always be smooth. It means that even in the wilderness, manna falls. Even in the drought, water flows from rocks. Even in the famine, ravens bring food. When God leads, he provides. Not always the way you expect, but always enough. Always on time. Living in the overflow of God's provision doesn't start with abundance, it starts with awareness. Are you looking at what you lack, or are you seeing what he's given? Gratitude opens your eyes to the miracle already in your hand. Some of the greatest provisions are invisible. Peace in chaos, strength in weakness, wisdom in confusion, joy in sorrow. When you recognize these, you begin to walk in a wealth that the world can't measure. So much of our anxiety is rooted in fear of not having enough money, enough opportunity, enough love. But when you walk with the shepherd, you're never truly empty. He is the God of more than enough. Not just enough to get by, but enough to overflow. And he's not stingy. He doesn't bless reluctantly. He delights in meeting the needs of his children. That's why David doesn't say, I hope I don't want or I might not want. He says it as a fact. I shall not want. It's settled. This truth can transform how you pray, how you give, how you work, how you live. You stop begging heaven and start walking with confidence. You stop chasing and start receiving. You stop striving and start rest because the shepherd has already gone ahead, prepared the pasture, and promised to provide. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. And you are not lacking. You are in the hands of the one who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and he has never failed to feed his flock. Truth 3. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Rest is your birthright. These words are more than poetic, they are prophetic. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Not asks me, not invites me. He makes me. Why? Because the shepherd knows something about us that we often ignore. Left to ourselves, we'll keep moving, striving, doing, pushing, worrying. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor. We call busyness purpose and burnout progress. But God calls it what it is, disconnected living. So in his mercy, he makes us lie down. This isn't a punishment, it's a rescue. Rest isn't weakness, it's worship. It's a sacred pause where God recalibrates our soul, reminds us who he is, and reclaims our attention. Green pastures aren't just physical places, they're spiritual spaces where God restores what the world has drained. It's in those pastures where the noise dies down and the shepherd's voice becomes clear again. It's where we stop performing and start breathing. The phrase green pastures speaks of more than just rest. It speaks of nourishment. These are not dry, barren lands. They are rich, alive, abundant. God doesn't call you to rest in emptiness, but in plenty. He knows what you need to be replenished, and he leads you there, not so you can admire it, but so you can lie down in it. To rest in God is to trust him fully, to say, I don't have to run everything. I don't have to control it all. I don't have to be strong every moment. It's the posture of peace. Yet many of us resist this. We're afraid if we slow down, everything will fall apart. We're terrified of silence, scared to stop because stillness confronts us with the parts of ourselves we've ignored. But here's the truth. Your soul was never designed to live on the edge of exhaustion. God built you for rhythm, work and rest, purpose and pause, movement and stillness. To lie down in green pastures is to step back into that rhythm and let the shepherd set your pace. Some seasons, God allows everything around you to quiet down so he can work on what's going on inside you. Sometimes he pulls you out of the crowd, the chaos, the calendar, and says, come away, lie down, let me restore you. That isn't rejection, that's love. That's protection. That's the Father drawing his child back into rest, not to waste time, but to redeem it. Rest is not earned. It's not a luxury for the few. It's your birthright as a child of God. Jesus didn't say, "Come to me, all who are productive and successful." He said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The green pastures are ready. The shepherd is calling. The only question is, will you lie down and receive it? Truth 4. He leads me beside still waters, navigating life with divine clarity. There's something sacred about still waters, something gentle, something unshaken. When David writes, "He leads me beside still waters," he's showing us the way God brings peace. Not by removing every problem, but by guiding us to a place where his voice rises above the noise. These aren't stormy seas or rushing torrents. They're calm, quiet, reflective. That's no accident. God isn't trying to overwhelm you, he's trying to center you. Still waters represent more than peace, they reveal direction. The shepherd doesn't drive you forward like a taskmaster. He leads you. He goes before you. With wisdom, with timing, with perfect understanding of what lies ahead. In a world filled with conflicting voices, toxic noise, and unrelenting pressure, his leadership is gentle but sure. When you're following him, you don't have to figure it all out. You just have to keep your eyes on the one who never takes a wrong step. But here's the truth many overlook. Clarity often comes in stillness, not speed. We live in a culture addicted to motion. Always moving, always doing, always scrolling, chasing, updating. We equate busyness with productivity and hurry with purpose. But God isn't in a rush. He's not panicked. He's not trying to compete with the noise of the world. He invites you to leave it, to step away from the chaos and walk with him beside still waters, where truth comes quietly but powerfully. Have you ever noticed how water reflects when it's still? You can see your face clearly. You can see the sky above. That's the beauty of stillness with God. It helps you see both who you are and who he is. It brings alignment. It brings correction. Not in shame, but in love. He leads you to these waters, not to scold you, but to center you. To remind you that clarity is possible. That peace is possible. That hearing him clearly isn't a mystery for the few, it's a promise for the surrendered. And this guidance isn't theoretical. God gives real direction, practical daily, step by step. Sometimes it comes through his word, sometimes through a quiet nudge in your spirit, sometimes through a conversation or a moment of silence where everything just clicks. But it all starts with being led. The shepherd can't lead someone who refuses to slow down long enough to listen. Still waters don't mean the absence of problems, they mean the presence of peace in the middle of them. They're a picture of what happens when you let God lead you instead of your fear. When you stop striving for answers and start trusting the one who already knows the end from the beginning. If your life feels loud, heavy, fast, chaotic, know this: he is not pushing you harder. He's leading you slower. Not to delay you, but to deliver you from decisions made in panic and emotions driven by fear. Still waters wait for those who are willing to be led. The shepherd knows the way. All you have to do is follow. Truth 5. He restores my soul, healing the hidden wounds. There are wounds no one sees, hurts buried deep beneath the surface, disappointments too painful to talk about, rejections we never admitted broke us, shame we've carried for years behind smiles and busyness. These wounds don't always bleed, but they ache. They shape the way we walk, the way we think, the way we relate to others. And if we're honest, many of us have learned to live with a soul that's tired, fractured, guarded. But Psalm 23 offers a promise that cuts through all of that. He restores my soul. This isn't a surface-level restoration. It's not a spiritual bandage or a temporary fix. This is God reaching into the places no one else can touch. The memories, the fears, the lies we've believed, and bringing healing from the inside out. When David says God restores his soul, he's speaking from experience. He knew what it meant to fall, to weep, to grieve, to fail. But he also knew the shepherd doesn't abandon the broken. He heals them. And not just once, again and again. Restoration is the work of a tender shepherd who knows exactly where you've been wounded and never rushes your healing. It doesn't always happen instantly. Sometimes it comes in waves, in still moments, in whispered truths, in the arms of grace. But it comes, and the restoration of your soul isn't just about recovery, it's about resurrection. It's about bringing life back to places that have grown numb, joy back to places filled with sorrow, hope back to places overtaken by despair. Maybe your soul has been worn down by years of striving. Maybe you've been betrayed by people you trusted, or crushed by weighty expectations that left you feeling like you'll never be enough. Maybe you've been fighting a silent war with anxiety, regret, or guilt. The good news is this: the shepherd isn't afraid of your mess. He doesn't flinch at your brokenness. He moves toward it with gentleness, with truth, with healing in his hands. Sometimes God allows the cracks in our soul to show so that his glory can shine through them. He doesn't need you to have it all together. He needs you to be honest, to bring him the pieces, to stop pretending and start surrendering. Because when we admit we're not okay, that's when restoration begins. That's when grace flows in like a flood and starts doing the work we could never do on our own. Let this truth settle in your spirit. You don't have to live numb. You don't have to settle for survival. You don't have to carry the pain alone. The one who made your soul knows how to mend it. He doesn't just forgive you, he restores you, he brings back joy. He revives passion, he reawakens purpose. He reminds you of who you were before life tried to rewrite your story. And the beauty is, you don't have to understand how it all works. You just have to say yes. Yes to healing. Yes to wholeness. Yes to the shepherd who walks into the darkest rooms of your soul, not to judge, but to restore. Your healing is not a dream. It's a promise, and he's already begun the work. Truth 6. Even though I walk through the valley, conquering fear with presence. David doesn't say, if I walk through the valley. He says, even though, because valleys are not optional, they're inevitable. No matter how strong your faith is, how consistent your prayer life, how deep your love for God, there will be valleys. Dark seasons, confusing moments, times when the path forward is unclear and the weight on your shoulders feels unbearable. But the power of this verse is not in avoiding the valley, it's in walking through it. You don't have to pitch a tent in your pain. You don't have to set up camp in the middle of your fear. The shepherd leads you through. That one word holds hope. Through means there's an exit. Through means the darkness has a boundary. Through means this is not your final chapter. And David knows it, not because he read it in a book, but because he's lived it. He's been hunted, betrayed, broken, and alone. But through every valley, God never left. What separates the valley from destruction is presence. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. That's the turning point, not a change in scenery, not a promise that everything will be easy, but the presence of the shepherd. God never promised a life without trouble, but he did promise you'll never face it alone. His presence doesn't always remove the pain, but it redeems it. It transforms fear into faith and panic into peace. The valley often tests your vision. Shadows loom large and make things look worse than they are. The enemy wants to convince you that the shadow means death, that you're alone, that you won't make it. But remember, shadows only exist where there is light, and if there's a shadow, it means the light is still near. You may not see him clearly, but his presence surrounds you. And when you lean into it, you begin to walk differently. Not with fear, but with confidence. Notice something else. This is the first time in Psalm 23 where David stops talking about God and starts talking to him. You are with me. When the valley comes, theology becomes intimacy. Faith becomes personal. The shepherd is no longer a concept, he's a companion, and in that shift, fear loses its grip. Because perfect love casts out fear, and there's no love more perfect than the love that walks with you through the darkest places without hesitation. Sometimes we think courage means not feeling fear, but real courage is walking forward with trembling hands because you know who walks beside you. It's choosing trust over terror, worship over worry, stillness over striving. And when you realize God is with you, not just watching from above, but walking beside you, you begin to understand what victory really looks like. It's not always loud. It's not always flashy. Sometimes it looks like quiet perseverance. Sometimes it looks like tears in the middle of the night and still choosing to pray. Sometimes it looks like standing when everything in you wants to collapse. But every step you take in the valley, He takes with you. Every fear you whisper, He hears. Every weakness you feel, He carries. So don't rush through the valley. Don't despise it. God does some of His deepest work there. He prunes, purifies, and prepares. And when you come out the other side, and you won't be the same. You'll be stronger, wiser, and more aware than ever of the shepherd who never let go. Truth 7. You prepare a table. Victory in the presence of your enemies. Of all the images in Psalm 23, this one may be the most surprising. We expect God to provide. We expect Him to lead and to protect. But here, David shifts the tone and paints a picture that feels almost out of place. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies, not after the battle, not once the enemies are gone, right in front of them, right in the thick of tension and threat. God doesn't just give you strength, He throws a banquet. This is not survival, this is celebration. And it's not private, it's public. God prepares a table before you. Yes, for your nourishment, but also before them, those who opposed you, doubted you, tried to break you. It's not about revenge. It's about revelation. He is revealing to your enemies and to you that no weapon formed against you can prosper when the shepherd is your defender. Your victory is not hidden in a corner. It's displayed like a feast. The table is a sign that the battle does not define you, the invitation does. When God sets a table for you, He's declaring, you belong here. You are honored here. You are chosen, not because of what you've done, but because of who you are to me. And in this space, even surrounded by threats, there's peace. Not because the danger is gone, but because the host is greater than the threat. Imagine the audacity of this kind of peace. To sit and eat while your enemies watch. To feast while fear tries to creep in. To rest while pressure swirls around you. That's the kind of authority God gives His children. He doesn't wait for the world to approve you. He anoints you in front of them. He honors you in plain sight of every voice that said you weren't enough. And in doing so, He rewrites the story they tried to write for you. But here's the deeper truth. The real enemy is not always a person. Often it's shame, guilt, insecurity, trauma, doubt. And even then, God prepares the table. He says, sit down, eat. You don't have to fight that anymore. I've already won. Let me nourish you. Let me pour the oil. Let me fill your cup. That's not weakness, that's trust. You stop fighting for validation and start receiving the victory that's already yours. This table is not for the proud. It's for the surrendered. It's not earned through performance. It's prepared by grace. And when you sit there, you're not just dining, you're testifying. Every bite says, He brought me through. Every sip says, He sustained me. Every moment at the table declares, my shepherd never left me. So if you're surrounded today by critics, by battles, by fear, remember this. The table is already being set. The presence of your enemies is not the end of your story. It's the backdrop to your breakthrough. Let the shepherd seat you. Let Him serve you peace. Let Him anoint your head with the oil of purpose and dignity. And let your cup overflow, not in a place of isolation, but in the very space where you once felt defeated. Because victory isn't coming. Victory is here, and the table proves it. Psalm 23 is not just a chapter to be recited, it's a journey to be lived. Each verse unfolds a dimension of God's heart, a map of how He leads us, restores us, strengthens us, and honors us. From green pastures to dark valleys, from still waters to the table of victory, this psalm isn't just about comfort, it's about transformation. It's the testimony of a soul that has walked with God through every season and discovered that the shepherd is enough. David didn't write Psalm 23 to impress anyone. He wrote it because he had been in caves, in palaces, in battlefields, and in hidden places with God. He had failed, he had feared, he had rejoiced, and through it all he discovered one thing that never changed: God's presence. His shepherd was always there, and that same shepherd walks with you now. You don't have to wander. You don't have to strive. You don't have to carry the weight of life alone. The table is prepared. The pastures are green. The waters are still. The valley has an end, and the shepherd is calling. Will you follow him? If this message spoke to your heart, consider subscribing to Bible Talks for more content that brings Scripture to life, nurtures your soul, and draws you deeper into God's truth. Let's walk this journey together. The shepherd is waiting.